My name is Claire Mitchell, 32 years old, senior accountant at Henderson & Associates. And up until 3 seconds ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I'd survived a car accident at 17 that left doctors telling me I'd never carry children. I'd built a career from nothing. I'd found a man who loved me, or so I thought. And I'd made peace with the idea that some women get fairy tales, and some of us just get survival. The champagne glass shattered against the hardwood floor, and my mother didn't even flinch. But standing in my parents' dining room, watching my mother sweep up glass like she hadn't just dropped a bomb that would level my entire world, I realized I'd been surviving on borrowed time. The smell of pot roast filled the air, mixing with my mother's expensive perfume and the sharp scent of spilled champagne. My father sat at the head of the table, hands folded like he was about to lead a board meeting instead of ruin his daughter's life. My fiancé Daniel was beside me, his hand on my knee under the table, warm and steady. And across from us sat Madison, my 28-year-old sister, wearing that cream dress that made her look angelic and innocent. She was neither. "I'm so sorry," my mother said, but she wasn't looking at the broken glass. She was looking at Daniel. "I'm just clumsy tonight. Nervous, I suppose." "Nervous about what, Mom?" I asked, though something cold was already crawling up my spine. My father cleared his throat. "Claire, we asked you and Daniel here tonight because there's something we need to discuss before the wedding." "The wedding?" "Our wedding. The one that was supposed to happen in 6 weeks." I'd already ordered the flowers, pale pink peonies, because Daniel said they reminded him of the first bouquet he ever bought me. The invitations were sent. My dress hung in my closet, wrapped in protective plastic, a dream in ivory silk. "What about the wedding?" Daniel's voice was calm, but I felt his hand tighten on my knee. My mother returned to her seat, moving slowly, deliberately. She picked up her fresh glass of champagne, the replacement she'd poured while I was trying to figure out why my chest felt so tight. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked like a countdown. Rain started tapping against the windows, soft at first, then harder. "We love you, sweetheart," my mother said to me, her eyes wet. "You know that. Everything we do is because we love you." And that's when I knew. That's when the metallic taste of betrayal flooded my mouth, and I understood exactly what was about to happen. "Don't," I whispered. "Mom, please don't." But she was already turning to Daniel, her face arranged in that expression of motherly concern she'd perfected over 3 decades. "Daniel, has Claire told you about her accident? The one when she was 17. The room went silent except for the rain and that damned clock. Daniel looked at me, confusion creasing his forehead. "The car accident. Yes, she mentioned it. Said she broke her arm and had some physical therapy." "Is that all she said?" My father leaned forward, and I wanted to flip the table, to scream, to run. But I was frozen, watching my life splinter apart in slow motion. "Dad, stop." My voice came out stronger this time. "This isn't your story to tell. Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I like to know how far my stories are reaching, and a like and subscribe means a lot to small channels like ours and will keep these stories coming. Now let's continue. "I think Daniel deserves to know what he's signing up for," Madison said quietly, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Before he makes a commitment he might regret." Daniel's hand left my knee. I felt the absence like a physical wound. "The accident was bad," my mother continued, ignoring my glare. "Much worse than Claire probably told you. The damage to her pelvis was severe. The doctors were very clear about the long-term consequences." "Which are?" Daniel's voice had changed. It was cooler now, distant. "She can't have children," my father said bluntly. "Not naturally. The scarring and structural damage make pregnancy impossible, or at best, life-threatening for both her and any potential baby." The words hung in the air like smoke. I could feel Daniel's eyes on me, but I couldn't look at him. I was staring at the pot roast on my plate, watching the gravy congeal, feeling my entire future do the same. "Claire." Daniel's voice was soft. "Is this true?" He nodded. My throat had closed up. I'd been planning to tell him, Had rehearsed the conversation 1,000 times. I'd wanted to wait until after dinner, until we were alone, until I could explain that there were other options, that we could adopt, that we could still have the family he wanted. Just differently. But my parents had stolen that from me. They'd turned my private pain into dinner table gossip. I was going to tell you, I managed to whisper. Tonight, actually. I just wanted. We're not trying to hurt you, honey, my mother interrupted, reaching across the table toward my hand. Pulled away. We just think Daniel should have all the information before making such a permanent decision. And we think, she paused, glancing at my father, that maybe there's a better solution. For everyone. The rain was hammering now, steady and relentless. I could smell it through the walls, that clean, earthy scent that usually calmed me but now just made me feel trapped. A better solution, I repeated numbly. Madison shifted in her seat, and that's when I saw it. The way she looked at Daniel. The way her hand moved to smooth her dress, drawing his attention. The way she bit her lip, uncertain and vulnerable and perfect. Daniel, my father said, you've told us how much you want children. Big family. It's clear that's important to you, and it should be. But Claire can't give you that. It would be unfair to both of you to pretend otherwise. What are you saying? Daniel asked, but I could hear it in his voice. He already knew. I'm saying, my father continued, that Madison is young, healthy, and very fond of you. She's made it clear that she would be more than willing to give you the family you deserve. The family Claire can't provide. The world stopped spinning. Madison reached across the table, her fingers just barely touching Daniel's hand. I've always admired you, she said softly. And I think you deserve to be happy. To have everything you want. If Emily can't, Claire, if she can't give you that, maybe you should consider someone who can. Daniel stared at her hand on his. Then at her face. Then at my parents, who were nodding encouragingly like they just suggested he try a different flavor of ice cream. And then he started laughing. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was a deep, rolling laugh that built and built until his whole body was shaking with it. He laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes with his napkin. So hard the sound echoed off the walls and made my mother's smile freeze on her face. I'm sorry, he gasped, still laughing. I just need to be absolutely sure I understand what's happening here. You're offering me your other daughter. Like a trade-in. Like she's a coupon code. My father's face went red. Now Daniel, we're simply trying to be practical. Practical. Daniel's laughter died, but his eyes were blazing. You ambushed your daughter with her private medical history, humiliated her at your dinner table, and then tried to pimp out her sister as a replacement, and you think that's practical? Madison jerked her hand back like she'd been burned. I was just trying to help. Were you? Daniel turned to her, and his voice was ice. Or were you trying to steal your sister's fiancé? That's when I noticed the folder sitting beside Daniel's plate, half hidden under his napkin. It was manila, official-looking, with a law firm's name embossed across the top in gold lettering. And it was addressed to my parents. Daniel picked up the folder, and the room went so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. My mother's face had gone pale, all that artificial color draining away like someone had pulled a plug. My father's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. And Madison, poor scheming Madison, was staring at that folder like it might bite her. You know what's funny? Daniel said, his voice conversational now, almost friendly. He set the folder on the table between the salt and pepper shakers. I actually came here tonight with my own news to share. But please finish what you were saying about how Claire's defective and I should trade her in for the newer model. Daniel, my father started, but his voice wavered. No, seriously, I want to hear the rest of the pitch. Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. The rain outside was coming down in sheets now, battering the windows like it was trying to get in. Does Madison come with a warranty? Extended coverage? What's the return policy if she also turns out to be human and imperfect? There's no need to be cruel, my mother said, but her hand was shaking as she reached for her champagne. Cruel? I found my voice finally, and it came out raw and sharp. Mom, you just told my fiancé I'm broken and offered him my sister like a consolation prize. And you're worried about cruel? Madison's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I realized with a jolt. She was actually crying. Claire, I never meant, I just thought. You thought what? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. That you could just slide into my life. Wear my dress. Take my future. You can't give him what he wants. Madison's voice cracked, and suddenly she wasn't the angelic younger sister anymore. She was desperate, ugly with it. You heard him talk about wanting kids. 5 of them. A house full of noise and chaos and love. You can't give him that, but I can. Is it so wrong to want someone to see me? To choose me for once instead of perfect Claire? The words hit me like a slap. The smell of pot roast was making me nauseous now, mixing with the champagne and my mother's perfume and the wet earth smell seeping in from outside. Madison, I whispered, and I barely recognized my own voice. I'm your sister. And I'm supposed to just watch you have everything. Again. She was standing now too, tears streaming down her face. You got the scholarships, the career, the perfect fiancé. What do I get? Your leftovers. Your hand-me-downs. That's enough, my father barked, but nobody was listening to him anymore. Daniel tapped the folder. The sound was soft, but it cut through the chaos like a knife. I think, he said quietly, that everyone should sit down. Because we're going to have a different conversation now. Something in his tone made us all freeze. Madison sank back into her chair, wiping her eyes. I sat down slowly, my legs shaking. My mother gripped her champagne glass like a lifeline. This folder, Daniel continued, sliding it toward my father, contains some very interesting information. See, Claire didn't know this, but about 2 months ago, I got a call from an old friend who works in real estate development. He mentioned that a property I'd been eyeing had suddenly been purchased by a family trust. The Mitchell Family Trust, to be specific. My father's face went from red to gray. Now, I wouldn't have thought much of it, Daniel said. Except that property was the land I'd told Claire I wanted to buy. For our future. For the house I wanted to build for us. Funny coincidence, right? I looked at my father. Dad. What is he talking about? So I did some digging, Daniel continued. Had my lawyer pull some records. Turns out the Mitchell Family Trust has been very busy lately. Buying up properties. Making investments. All funded by a rather large loan taken out against Claire's trust fund. The one her grandmother left her. The one that's supposed to be untouchable until she's 35 or gets married. The floor dropped out from under me. What? My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, but this time it didn't shatter. It just rolled across the table, spilling golden liquid across the white tablecloth like a stain spreading. That's not, we didn't, my father stammered. You did, Daniel said flatly. He pulled papers from the folder, spreading them across the table. You took out a loan using her trust as collateral. Except the trust specifically forbids that. Which means you forged Claire's signature. Which is fraud. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. We were going to pay it back, my mother whispered. Before she ever knew. The investments were supposed to mature and we'd replace the money and she'd never have to know. Except the investments tanked, Daniel said. Didn't they? And now you owe $300,000 you don't have, secured against a trust you had no legal right to touch. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. $300,000. My grandmother's legacy. The safety net she'd left me because she knew, somehow she'd known, that I might need it someday. How long have you known? I asked Daniel, and my voice sounded far away. He turned to me, and his eyes were soft. 2 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I said anything. I wanted to have all the evidence. 2 weeks. I laughed, but it came out broken. You've known for 2 weeks that my parents stole from me, and you didn't tell me? I wanted to protect you, he said quietly. By keeping secrets. Like I kept mine. The irony tasted bitter. We're really quite a pair, aren't it? Madison was staring at our parents like she'd never seen them before. You stole from Claire. From your own daughter. We were trying to save the house, my father said, and suddenly he looked old, defeated. We made some bad investments. Got in over our heads. We thought if we could just buy that development property, flip it, we'd be back on our feet. We were going to tell Claire eventually. After the wedding. After you'd manipulated Daniel into leaving me for Madison. Finished. The pieces were clicking into place now, sharp and painful. That's what this dinner was about. You weren't trying to look out for Daniel's happiness. You were trying to sabotage my wedding so I wouldn't get access to the trust. So I couldn't find out what you'd done. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. We didn't know what else to do. If you get married, the trust becomes active. You'd see the statements. You'd find out. We thought if we could just delay things, convince Daniel that you weren't right for each other. You'd have more time to cover your tracks, Daniel finished. And when that didn't work, when I kept planning the wedding anyway, you decided to get creative. Tell me about Claire's fertility issues. Make me question the relationship. Maybe even push Madison at me as an alternative. Keep Claire single, keep her from accessing the trust, keep your fraud hidden. Is that why you told him? Asked my mother. About the accident. About my medical history. Not because you thought he deserved to know, but because you wanted him to leave me. She couldn't even look at me. The rain was pounding now, a roar against the roof. Through the window, I could see lightning flash, illuminating the yard in stark white light. The grandfather clock chimed 9 times, each note echoing through the house like a funeral bell. I think I'm going to be sick, Madison whispered. You! I turned on her. You were ready to steal my fiancé 5 minutes ago, and now you're upset? I didn't know, she shouted. I didn't know about the money, about any of it. I just thought, they told me you were keeping secrets from Daniel, that you weren't right for each other, that he'd be happier with someone who could give him what he wanted. I didn't know they were using me. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw the truth in her eyes. She'd been a pawn too. A pretty, desperate pawn who'd convinced herself she was doing something noble instead of something shameful. We're all just pieces in their game, I said quietly. Aren't we? Daniel stood up, and the sound of his chair scraping back made everyone jump. Here's what's going to happen, he said, his voice hard. Tomorrow morning, Claire and I are going to meet with my lawyer. We're going to file a police report for fraud. You're going to lose the house, probably end up with criminal charges, and Claire is going to get back every penny you stole from her, plus damages. Daniel, please, my father begged. We're family. No, Daniel said. You're thieves who happen to share Claire's DNA. There's a difference. He held out his hand to me. I stared at it for a long moment, this hand that had kept secrets, that had protected me in ways I didn't ask for, that was offering me an escape from the wreckage of my family. Took it. But as I stood up as we turned to leave, I heard my mother's voice, small and broken. Claire, wait. There's something else you need to know. I turned back, Daniel's hand warm in mine. What else could there possibly be? My mother looked at my father, some silent communication passing between them. He shook his head, but she ignored him. The accident, she said. When you were 17. It wasn't an accident. The world tilted sideways. What? Madison was driving. The words didn't make sense at first, like my brain was refusing to process them. Madison was driving. I looked at my sister, and the color had completely drained from her face. She was shaking her head over and over, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find words. No, I whispered. That's not true. I was driving. I lost control on the wet road. I remember. You remember what we told you to remember, my father said, and his voice was hollow. You were unconscious for 3 days after the crash. When you woke up, you had no memory of what happened. We told you that you'd been driving. That it was your fault. The rain was screaming against the windows now, And I felt like I was back in that car, metal crunching, glass shattering, pain exploding through my body. Except now the driver's seat was empty and Madison was there instead, 16 years old and crying. Why? My voice broke on the word. Why would you lie to me? Because Madison had been drinking, my mother said, and she was sobbing openly now. She took your car without permission, picked up her friends, went to a party. You went looking for her because she wasn't answering her phone. You were the responsible one like always. You found her on Route 47, swerving all over the road. You tried to get her to pull over. I couldn't breathe. The smell of pot roast was choking me. Daniel's hand tightened on mine. She didn't see the intersection, my father continued. Ran straight through a red light. The other car hit the passenger side. Or side. If you'd been driving, you might have walked away with minor injuries. But because you were in the passenger seat, trying to talk your drunk sister into pulling over, you took the full impact. I killed you, Madison whispered. I killed who you were supposed to be. And Mom and Dad covered it up because I was 16 and drunk and they didn't want me to go to jail, to have a record, to have my life ruined. So they ruined yours instead and made you think it was your fault. The room was spinning. 15 years. 15 years of physical therapy, of doctor's appointments, of grieving the children I'd never carry. 15 years of believing it was my fault, that I'd been careless, that I'd destroyed my own future. You let me believe I did this to myself, I said, and my voice sounded strange, distant. You let me carry that guilt for 15 years. We were trying to protect Madison, my mother said. She was so young. I was 17. I screamed. I was young too. But you decided her future was worth more than mine. So you let me think I'd crippled myself while she got to walk away clean. Claire, please. Madison reached for me, but I jerked back. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Thunder cracked outside, so loud it rattled the windows. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. I could see my reflection in the dark window glass, pale and hollow-eyed. A ghost of the girl I'd been before that night. All of it, I said slowly, the pieces falling into place. Everything you've done. The stealing, the lies about my medical history, trying to push Madison at Daniel. It was all to cover up what you did to me. We were trying to make it right, my father said weakly. The money from the trust, we were going to use it to pay for fertility treatments for you. The new procedures, the experimental ones. We thought if we could give you back what Madison took. You can't give it back. I slammed my hand on the table, making the dishes jump. You can't steal my money to buy forgiveness for stealing my future. That's not how this works. Daniel's arm came around my shoulders, solid and real. We're leaving, he said quietly. Now. Wait. Madison stood up, tears streaming down her face. Claire, I'm sorry. I've been sorry every single day for 15 years. Why do you think I never left town? Never got married? Never did anything with my life? I was punishing myself because I couldn't punish myself enough for what I took from you. So instead you tried to take Daniel too. I laughed, sharp and bitter. How was that punishing yourself, Madison? How was trying to steal my fiancé making amends? Because I don't deserve to be happy, she shouted. And if you couldn't be happy either, then at least we'd be even. At least I wouldn't have to watch you build a perfect life while knowing I'm the reason it could never be completely perfect. The truth of it hit me like another car crash. She hadn't been trying to help Daniel or even herself. She'd been trying to drag me down to her level, to make sure that even if I survived what she'd done, I'd never fully escape it. You're sick, I whispered. You're all sick. I turned to Daniel. The folder. Give it to me. He handed it over without question. I opened it, scanning the documents inside. Bank statements, loan agreements, forged signatures. All the evidence we needed to destroy my parents financially and legally. Then I saw another set of papers underneath. Medical records. Not mine. Daniel's. My hands started shaking as I read. Genetic screening results. Fertility analysis. All dated from 3 months ago. Daniel. I looked up at him. What is this? He met my eyes, and I saw something there I'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Fear. When you told me about wanting to adopt someday, he said quietly, I started thinking about why that was so important to you. I knew you'd had an accident, but I didn't know the details. So I did some research on what kinds of injuries could make pregnancy impossible. And I realized that if you couldn't have biological children, maybe it wasn't fair for me to be able to either. I stared at him. What did you do? I got tested first to make sure I was viable. Then I made an appointment for a vasectomy. It's scheduled for next week. The folder slipped from my hands. Papers scattered across the table, across the pot roast, across my mother's spilled champagne. You were going to make yourself sterile, I said. For me. I don't want you to feel less than, he said simply. I don't want you to spend our marriage wondering if I regret choosing you. If you can't have biological children, then neither can I. We'll adopt. We'll foster. We'll build our family together on equal terms. That's insane, I whispered. That's love, he corrected. And before you argue, before you tell me it's too much or I'm being crazy, you should know something else. I don't want 5 kids. I never did. Blink. But you told my parents. I told your parents what they wanted to hear because I was trying to figure out why they were so interested in my family planning all of a sudden. I wanted to see what they'd do if they thought you couldn't give me what I wanted. Turns out, they revealed exactly who they are. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and my mother's voice filled the room. We were going to pay it back before she ever knew. The investments were supposed to mature, and we'd replace the money and she'd never have to know. He'd recorded everything. Every word of their confession. I came here tonight with evidence of fraud, Daniel said, looking at my parents. I was going to give you a choice. Come clean to Claire and work out a payment plan, or I go to the police. But then you did something I didn't anticipate. You tried to weaponize her trauma. You told me about her medical history not because you thought I should know, but because you wanted to make her feel worthless. And that's when I realized you don't deserve a choice. He held up his phone. I'm sending this recording to my lawyer right now. By morning you'll be under investigation. You'll lose the house, your reputations, probably your freedom. And Claire will get every penny you stole, plus enough in damages to fund whatever life she chooses. Please, my mother begged. We're your family, Claire. Your blood. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd carried me for 9 months, raised me for 17 years, then sacrificed me to save my sister. This woman who'd let me believe I was broken by my own carelessness rather than admit her perfect daughter had shattered me. You stopped being my family the night you chose Madison over me, I said. You're just people I used to know. I turned to Daniel. I need to leave. I can't breathe in here. He nodded, already moving toward the door. I followed, my legs shaky but working. Behind us, I could hear my mother crying, my father trying to speak, Madison calling my name. I didn't look back. We burst out into the rain, and it was freezing, soaking through my clothes in seconds. Daniel's car was parked on the street, but I couldn't get in yet. I needed the rain, needed it to wash away the last 15 years, the lies, the guilt, the weight of a crime I never committed. Claire! Daniel pulled off his jacket, tried to put it around my shoulders. Pushed it away. Did you know? Yes. About Madison being the driver? No. Swear. I only knew about the money. But you kept that secret from me for 2 weeks. I did, he admitted. And I was wrong. I thought I was protecting you, but really I was making the same choice your parents made. Deciding what you could handle instead of trusting you to be strong enough for the truth. The rain was coming down so hard I could barely see him. Just a shape in the darkness, solid and real. I don't want you to get a vasectomy, I said. Okay. I don't want you to sacrifice yourself to make me feel equal. Okay. I want you to be honest with me. Always. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. I can do that, he said. Can you? I thought about all the times I'd planned to tell him about my fertility issues and chickened out. All the ways I'd hidden my damage, my fear, My conviction that I wasn't enough. I can learn, I said. He pulled me close and I let him. We stood there in the rain in front of my parents' house, while everything I'd thought was true crumbled behind us. What do we do now? Yes. Now, Daniel said. We go home. Tomorrow we call the lawyer, file charges, start getting your money back. Next week we postpone the wedding. My heart clenched. Postpone. Not cancel, he said quickly. Postpone. 'Cause I think we need some time. To be honest with each other. To build trust the right way. To make sure we're choosing each other for the right reasons. Not just because we're standing in the wreckage together. He was right. Course he was right. But it hurt anyway. And after, I whispered. After we've done all that. He kissed my forehead, gentle and sure. After we get married. We build that house on the land I'm going to buy now that your parents can't. We adopt kids or don't adopt kids or foster or volunteer or do whatever feels right for the family we create together. We live our lives, Claire. The ones they tried to steal from us. Thunder rolled overhead, but it was fading now, moving away. The rain was starting to ease, turning from a downpour to a steady shower. I'm going to need therapy, I said. So much therapy. Me too, he agreed. Couples therapy. Individual therapy. Maybe some group therapy for people engaged to women whose families are criminally insane. I laughed. Came out watery and broken, but it was real. Behind us, the lights were on in my parents' house. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. My mother, my father, Madison. All of them trapped in the mess they'd made. The lies that were finally catching up. I felt Daniel's hand slip into mine. Ready? He asked. I took one last look at the house where I'd grown up, where I'd been told I'd destroyed my own future, where my family had chosen my sister over me again and again. Then I turned my back on it and walked toward the car. Ready, I said. And for the first time in 15 years I meant it.